Okay. I don't know if make sure pull that table to here.
Yeah.
You want to help him put the table to there? This table, I don't know why it's in the wrong spot. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. Yeah, turn those chairs around. All right, let's start. You got a booklet? You know you got. Okay, good. So we are on Shomer Shemas al Shomer part 2. Shomer Shemas al Shomer means one Shomer gave it over to another Shomer without asking the owner. So we spoke out from the Gemara Baba Metzia Lamed Vav Amud Aleph. There was a machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Rav said the words Potter. Rabbi Yochanan says the words Chayev. Rav says Potter, and last week we spent time explaining 3 shitos in the Rishonim. What does it mean that Rav says Potter? Shomer Shemas al Shomer Potter, that he's exempt. What does that mean according to Rav? We said 3 shitas. Let's focus on 2 of the shitas for Chazara purposes. Rashi says that all it means is that you're not chayiv for the actual giving over. It's not considered negligent to give it over because I gave it over to someone who's also a bendas, a bardas. I gave it over to someone who also has seichel. So you can't call me negligent for giving it over. However, I'm only exempt from whatever I would have been exempt had I been watching it. So according to Rashi, the point is I can have someone watching for me. I'm still the shomer, I'm still in charge, but now I have someone working underneath me to watch it. That's according to Rashi. According to some of the Rishonim, the pshat is that he actually, the second shomer, according to Rav, actually takes over the shmira. And the owner, his only recourse is to go after the second shomer, according to Rav, and he cannot go after the first shomer. Even if the second shomer has no money, that becomes his problem. Okay, so this is Shomer Shemas al Shomer according to Rav, and your potter. We paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. Why does Rabbi Yochanan say chayev? Rabbi Yochanan says Shomer Shemas al Shomer chayev. What's so bad that you gave it over to someone else? So you mentioned last week you don't like the whole idea because very nice that he's considered a trustworthy person and everything, but I have nothing to do with that guy. I don't know him. I don't trust him. I gave it to you. What are you going and handing over my stuff to someone else? That was what you said last week.
Yeah, one other component is I know if you're negligent, you have the money to pay it back.
Very good.
But I don't know about the other.
That's another component. So A, I trust you. B, I know that you have the ability to pay it back. I've dealt with you in the past. Don't start now, handing me over someone that I don't know. So that was Mr. Brass's problem, and he was mechaven to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, and that's how we paskin. We paskin chayiv based on that. But it's not 100% based on that. There's one other component. And the component is that part of this is very important piece. It's going to sound technical, but it's not technical. It's very, very important. Okay? I didn't realize myself how important it was until I saw the Reb Chaim. There's a Reb Chaim here, Chidusha Reb Chaim Alevi. So he discusses this sugya. He brings out a point. The Gemara says that any shomer that wants to exempt himself from the owner, he tells the owner, "I'm sorry. Look, I don't have. Let's say I'm a shomer chinam, and I come and say it was stolen. I'm potter. What should I do? It was stolen. Nothing I can do about it, right?" So the halacha is that he's potter, but he has to make a shavua. And this shavua turns out is a very fundamental part of the chi of shmira. When the shomer takes upon himself the responsibility to watch the item, he takes upon himself a few things. Number one, I'm going to watch your item. Number two is, I'm going to return to you the item. And number three is, I'm going to return, if I can't return to you the item, I'll provide for you a shavua. So you're getting something in return. You're getting that I'm swearing that it's not mine, that I don't have it, or that it wasn't negligent. I'm swearing to you. So you have to produce for me either the item or a shavua. Okay? So the shavua is like kind of the response to the claim. So that means that when an owner gives something to a shomer to watch, he's producing a claim. He's going to have a claim now against the shomer. The claim is giving back the item. So the shomer has to respond to that claim with one of two things: either the item, or payment, or a shvua. Okay? So now, the way the Rabbi Yochanan says the point why Shomer Shemasar l'Shomer is chayiv is because, like we said, the owner has a claim on the Shomer that you have to watch it, but besides watching it, you have to give it back to me. You have to give it back to me. Either give me back the item, make payments, or make a shvua. Right? Now, Rabbi Yochanan says like this: you gave it over to this new guy. The new guy, he could watch the item, no problem. Because Rav says he could watch it. You gave it to a trustworthy guy. But that guy cannot necessarily do the other functions. He can't necessarily swear to me and can't necessarily pay to me. I don't know if he has the money. But there's another point. I don't believe his shvua. I don't trust his shvua. And therefore, the fact that I don't trust his shvua makes it that he's the type of person that you can't give it to him. You're not allowed to give it to someone that won't be able to produce for me a shavua to protect my asset. A shvua is...
When do we have that concept? You have to believe someone's shvua.
There is such a thing.
Do we have it anywhere else?
I don't know.
Clearly there's such a thing.
Clearly right here. But usually, if you lend someone money, they have to make a shvua, right?
Right, I don't believe your shvua that you paid it back to me, so now you have to give it back?
No, but it's assumed to be that when you gave someone the money, you're believing them to either pay you back or give you a shvua that it's wrong. So here, when you give someone over, it's at mehemnes li b'shvua. The Gemara says that you have to believe. The owner has the right to say, "I'm only willing to give it to somebody that will either be able to produce back to me the item, or at least make a shvua to me that he won't have the item."
Why do we have to go so crazy? Why can't, if you can say that, why can't we just say, "I only gave it to you because I trust your shmira. I don't trust the shmira." Done.
No, because then it's making. It's making that the machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan is a little more narrow. Rav says you do trust the shmira. So now we're going to say Rabbi Yochanan argues on that point. So I guess the Gemara wants to say, Abaye wants to say that I would rather say Rabbi Yochanan also agrees to that point theoretically, that I don't care if who's watching my item, actually. I don't really care who's watching my item. What I really care about is the insurance policy on the item. I don't really care about what's going to happen while it's being watched. You watch it, he watches it. What I'm really worried about, and I'm giving it to someone, is that there should be enough insurance on the item. That in case something happens, I'm protected. Not that I'm the shmir itself. So therefore, Rav Yochanan is arguing on that point, that I don't have enough insurance on the item, because my insurance is the shvua. My insurance is the shvua, and the insurance is the payment. And if I'm missing in the payment or in the shvua, that's where Rabbi Yochanan is picking on. So the Gemara says, there's a big nafkamina of this. A big nafkamina. Nafkamina is, what happens if it was a person that you always trusted? You know what? This guy, whenever you go out of town, you give over your jewelry to this guy to watch. Happens to be, he's out of town, so you gave it to me. Right? Let's make it more clear. Ruvain has a box of jewelry and he's going out of town. Whenever Ruvain goes out of town, he gives over his box of jewelry to Shimon to watch. This time, Ruvain's out of town. He's looking for Shimon. Shimon's also out of town. So he gives it over to Levi. So Ruvain gave over the item to Levi. Now, a week later, Shimon shows back up. So Levi will now go to Shimon and say, hey, can you watch Ruvain's stuff? So now, right? And now everyone's bad luck. Everyone's bad luck. The box of jewelry gets stolen from Shimon's house. Everyone's a Shomer Chinam, assuming everyone's a Shomer Chinam here. So now, can Reuven have a claim against Levi? What are you doing giving it over to another Shomer? You always give it to Shimon. You can't come and tell me that you don't trust Shimon. You always trusted Shimon. So you can't come along and now tell me that you don't trust Shimon. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says in such a case, he agrees to Rav that Levi is potter because he gave it over to someone that we know that there's a relationship between Reuven and Shimon. This Gemara is the Gemara. Let's read it inside. It's Geshmak. What?
So why is there not that?
No, because if no. But if the point is, if the pshat in Rabbi Yochanan would have been that I gave it over to you, you have no right to transfer it, nothing to do with trust, then even this case would be a problem. Because for whatever reason, I didn't give it to Shimon. It's a fact. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of responsibility. I gave it to you. It's not within your rights to give it to someone else. So if that would have been Pshat and Rabbi Yochanan, then even in this case it would be a problem. But now that Abaye is saying Pshat and Rabbi Yochanan is based on this trusting the Shvuah, since you normally do trust the Shvuah, you won't have that claim. That's the point of the Gemara.
I mean, nowadays, a Shomer Chinam who has a Ner Aveda or there's an Ones or something, we don't make him.
I don't know the answer to that question. I was wondering myself. Now that we're making the Shvuah so fundamental, the Shvuah is becoming like a major component in the Shmirah. And to the point that if you don't trust some Shvuah, then he's not a Shomer for you. So like nowadays we don't make Shvuahs. So how does this whole thing work? Maybe if I would love to be able to get an answer to that by next week.
It's a big knock for me if we say we don't trust the Shvuah, we don't trust the Shmirah.
Right, exactly. Because if you're not making a Shvuah anyway, right? Now we did see in the Poskim that he's mentioned the point you made also. First of all, the Beis Yosef says that you're allowed to give it over to someone that Reuven trusts is only if he's just trustworthy. If between the last time you gave it to Shimon and this time Shimon went to jail, right, or Shimon was exposed as some sort of whatever.
Or even if you went bankrupt.
What?
Even if you went bankrupt.
Right. So then you don't have this claim. Yeah, I always gave it to Shimon. But that was before Shimon was on the front page of the New York Times. Now that Shimon was exposed, whatever, I'm not interested in giving it to him anymore. That's number one. And then number two is what we both said, is what if Shimon lost all of his money in the meanwhile? He's still trustworthy, but I'm still not interested in giving it to him because part of my insurance is the shvuah or payment. He has got to be able to make both. If he has no money, I'm also not interested in giving it to Shimon.
And there's a middle ground between the guy's out of town, therefore I couldn't give it to him, versus he's on the front page of the New York Times. But the guy was in town. I didn't give it to him. There's a reason why I didn't give it to him. I have not to trust him anymore. He has plenty of money, and he wasn't on the front page of the New York Times. I just lost my trust in him. I had a bad interaction with him.
He took your parking spot? What happened?
It's none of your business.
What?
There's a reason why I give it to you. I don't trust Yeshua.
The lashon of the Beis Yosef is im achakach he'eni, he became poor, oy shenase rasha. I don't know that it has to be a reason why. Here, let me read the Gemara with you. Page 7 in the booklet, the Gemara. The Gemara brings out the point. It's a Gemara that says like this. Hanuginoi. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like 9 lines up, in the last 9 lines of the thin lines on Lamed Vav Amud Aleph on page 7. Hanuginoi, there was these gardeners. Techol yoima have a mifketi marayu gabi dahi savsa. They would do their day's work, and then they would give their shovels to this old lady to watch. I guess her house was near the farm, and she would watch the shovels at night. One day, for whatever reason, they didn't give it to the grandmother, to the old lady. They gave it to one of the gardeners. Said, "You know what? I'm staying in tonight. I'm not going home tonight." So he finds. So why should we go give all of our shovels to the lady? We'll give our shovels to you. Shomer kala behilula. That night there was a chasana near the farm. So he went ahead and he said, "You know what? I told the guys that I'm going to watch the shovels, but I want to go to the chasana. So I'll give it over to the old lady." Nafak azal afkedinu legabo da'isaf. So he went ahead and gave it to the old lady. Ad azal. By the time he left and came back, ignav marayu. That night they got stolen from the old lady. You hear the case? Also lakame de Rav upatre. So Rav patred him. Man dechaza savar. Someone held. Oh, why did Rav Pater? Must be because Shomer Shemasol Shomer Pater. V'loihi. It's not true. Shiny Hasam the Chol Yoyma Nami Inu Giufayu Gabod Dahisaf Shahavaga Mifkedi. Here, even Rabbi Yochanan would agree that even though Shomer Shemasol Shomer is Chayiv, but here the Shomer Rishon gave it over to someone who the Bailam implicitly trusts, because the Bailam always give it over to that lady. So it's open Gemara about this issue that if there's a trust between the owner and the second shomer, you're allowed to give it over.
But it probably is this, who needs the amas? Like, who is it needs the excuse why they didn't use the regular person? It could be that we didn't use, in that case, the 5 people. Anyways, the guy's staying here, so there's no reason to schlep there, bring the shovels,
Right.
just leave it here.
Right.
But in a Hanami,
We would have given it to
But
her.
in the case of Ramalieza's case, the fact is that the guy always goes to his neighbor for the shomer, and then he skips a house and comes 2 doors down. He doesn't try to trust the guy in between who was home with that day. So he has.
I hear. So you.
In other words,
in that case, you want to know if it's a suffix and in your day prati. I don't know. I don't know. It's right.
What's the in other words?
I understand your point.
So I don't know if you can compare the two to the case.
Fine, that's a specific case. I'm keeping for the purposes of the share. Very clear. One case you trust them, one case you don't. In case where we don't know why you skipped over, we'll deal with different time maybe. So this is what the Gemara is saying now. So it comes out that even though Rabbi Yochanan says that you're chayev when you give it over to someone else, but not every case. There are plenty of cases that even according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to be potter, right? If you give it over to someone that the person trusts. Additionally, the Gemara says that when you give it over to someone, you have to assume that his wife may be watching it some of the time. You even have to be assuming that his older children may be watching it some of the time, because he's not going to be watching it himself, actually, and therefore it's assumed you can't. If something happens and you come and ask the shomer what happened, say, well, I was at work, but my wife was watching it. Oh, your wife? 1 second, I never gave it to you. Who told you that I trusted your wife? So the assumption is that the owner has to assume that if you're giving over something to the person, his wife or adult children will be watching it, and therefore you don't have a claim that I gave it to someone that's not trustworthy. Okay? So now based on all these cases, so we have cases now that even according to the person that holds Shomer Shemasol Shomer Chayev, we have plenty of cases that Shomer Shemasol Shomer is going to be potter. So what's the shaila? The shaila is, let's say you gave it to someone and he's equal. You were a shomer chinam, you gave it to another shomer chinam, and now something happens by the second guy. So, and he's pesheya, he was negligent. Who has to pay? The second guy, the first guy, both, neither. The first guy pays the owner, the second guy pays the first guy. There's a lot of different options. So I would say that if he's trustworthy to the owner, then what happens is, it would depend on what we said last week. If you go like Rashi, you go like the Ramban. If you go like the Ramban, then if it's the same level, then the second person took over. And Rabbi Yochanan agrees to that as long as you're trustworthy. And therefore, this is what we called Uki Gavr Bachari Koi. I put someone in my place, and he's now the shomer. So I would think that the halacha is that the first guy has to go directly to the owner has to go directly to the second shomer and skip over the first shomer. And even if the second shomer has no money, now he didn't not have money when I gave it to him. When I gave it to him, he had money. It's only now he has no money. If he didn't have money when I gave it to him, then you have your problem, which is not allowed to give it to someone who has no money.
It's not called very kind.
Right, but I gave it to him, and he had money when I gave it to him. So therefore, I was permitted to give it to him, and he was allowed to take over. Now he lost his money after. That's a different story. Since he lost his money afterwards, now the claim of the owner is against the second guy, and that's it. Now, that's what I would have thought. And this is in fact a machloikes between the shach and the sma, but not here. It's a shach and sma and simin ayin beis somewhere else. The Aruch HaShulchan brings it down. I looked in the Aruch HaShulchan. He brings down this machloikes shach and sma, whether when you give it over to someone who's trustworthy, can now the Shomer Rishon get out of the picture? Okay. And now the whole issue is between the first and the... Right. The problem is I'm missing a point here because there's a case that they're not. What happens if? But at some point, it does seem like that even in that case, there's a claim against the Shomer Rishon. I'm not clear on that point, but that's pretty clear. Okay, so now let's just before we're going to get into a Geshmak of Reb Chaim. We're going to say over the question of Reb Chaim. We'll say over the text of the Ketzois, and then we'll get to Reb Chaim maybe this week or next week. But let's just go in order. So in order to go do that, let's just sum everything up and look in the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch is in Reish Tzadi Aleph Sif Chavav, which is on page 42. Page 40. Wow, it's long. Okay, page 39. Page 39 in the booklet. Okay? Sif Chavav. Shomer shemasar l'shomer. Chayiv. So we paskin like Rabbi Yochanan. Now one shomer gave it to another shomer. The first shomer is chayiv. Afilu imhu shomer chinam umasal shomer sacha. Even if you upgrade it, it doesn't matter. Da amar lei, he could say at mehemnes li b'shvua. I believe your shvua. Heich loy mehemen li b'shvua. I don't believe the other person's shvua. Afilu im yadua lakol. It says it's by Chavav. You see where I am? Yeah. Okay. Afilu im yadua lakol shehasheni toiv v'kosher yoser marishon. Even if objectively speaking, everyone would trust the second guy more than the first, it doesn't matter because that's objectively speaking. But for the owner could say, "I gave it to you. I don't trust anybody else." Hagam miu. This is an important case. Shomer shemasa l'shomer lefnei hamafkid v'leimicha pater. What if the owner saw me handing it over, and the owner didn't say anything? Then the assumption would be that the owner was okay with it, because otherwise he would have stopped me. So the owner saw that the Shomer Rishon handed it over to the Shomer Sheni. So then the assumption is that he's okay with that handing it over. Fine. Lefikach, therefore. Im derech habaylim lahafkid tamid. Okay, so one second. Right there, before we go to lefikach, okay, if you look, there's a very interesting shach over here, which is the shach is the top right corner of the page. It's where he says im hushomer chinam. So we're talking about a case you had no right to give it over. Says the shach mikol makom im pasha hasheni. If the second guy was negligent. Rotza goyve masheni ve'ini yochel loimer lav bal dvarim didiyat. Dumid the gaz of lo nisashu abaylim. This is a very interesting shach, very hard shach to understand. The shach says that there's an owner. The owner gave it to the Shomer Rishon. The Shomer Rishon, without consent of the owner, gave it to the Shomer Sheni. So we said he has no permission to do that, and the claim of the owner is against the Rishon. Can the owner go straight to the Sheni if he wants? So I would have said no, because the Sheni will respond back to the owner and say, I don't know you. I'm the Shomer for the Rishon. I'm not the Shomer for you at all. That's what the Nesiva says. Lav bal dvarim didiyat. Who are you? I have no relationship with you. But the Shach says that since Lamaisa you're watching the owner's item, you automatically have to respond to the claim of the owner. And therefore the owner has a claim against both of them equally. It's just the whole question here is can the Shomer Rishon get out of it? But the Shomer Sheni definitely has to respond to the claim of the owner. It's a machlokes between the Nesivos and the Shach, right? When if an owner gave it to Shomer Rishon gave it to Shomer Sheni, does the Shomer Sheni have to respond to the owner? Right? You can look at it two ways. One way you can look at it is like, I'm not your Shomer. I never dealt with you. The other way is, well, you're not my Shomer. You're a Shomer on my item, and therefore the fact that you're a Shomer on my item makes you have to respond to me. Okay, I just wanted to bring that out. It's a nice point. Okay, next case. Lefikach, therefore, im derech habayim lahafkid, page 40, tamid davar zeh eitz l'ashomer sheni. In our case, where Reuven always gives it over to Shimon, just Shimon happened to be out of town. Harei hashomer harishon pater. Now Levi gave it back to Shimon. He's pater. Okay. Now, what happens? Now we're going to confuse factors. We're going to bring two factors together. Okay. By the way, there's a lot of limitations in this. It's only if the owner usually gives to the Shomer that value item. up to the value that you're discussing. Meaning, every time Reuven goes out of town, he gives his kid's bike over to Shimon. Now he gave his jewelry to Levi. So Levi's like, well, if you give your kid's bike over to Shimon, why wouldn't you give your jewelry over to Shimon? He says, no, I trust him with the bike. I don't trust him with the jewelry. There's no claim on that. It has to be that you gave that the owner has expressed a trust in the Shomer Rishon in the equivalent value that we're discussing here. That's okay. Now, what happens if this is where it gets complicated? This time, he actually gave it over to Levi as a paid Shomer. So he was looking for a paid Shomer, and he gave it over to Levi as a paid Shomer. So he's a Shomer Sachar. Now Levi decides, you know what? Last week when you went away, you took the jewelry and you gave it to Shimon as a free Shomer, as a Shomer Chinam. So I'll give it back to Shimon as a Shomer Chinam. So I gave it to someone that you trust, but I gave it to someone you trust with a lower level of responsibility than what you gave me. You hear the case? So the owner gave it to Levi as a Shomer Sachar. Now Levi gave it back to Shimon, who Reuven trusts, but he only gave it to him as a Shomer Chinam. No. So the question is like this. What?
He went piece
What?
He went down in responsibility.
Okay, but now let's work out the case. Let's work out the case.
What's the shayla?
The shayla. What?
Maybe still has all of his chiyuv.
Levi still has his chiyuv of Gneva Vaveda, right? But what if Shimon can make a shavua to the owner that it was Nensa, that would exempt even Shimon, and it would exempt even Levi, right? Levi's a Shomer Sachar. What's the only claim that Levi could make that would exempt him from his claim against the owner? Even if you're a paid Shomer, but if an oinus happens, you're potter. Right? The problem is you can't make the shvuah of oinus because you didn't see, but you gave it over to Shimon. Now Shimon can make a shvuah that was Nensa, right?
What is Nensa?
Nensa means that it would have an onus happen. Onus means something beyond your control, and the owner can't say, well, I don't trust Shimon's shvuah because he's a trustworthy guy to him. So in that case, would you be able to take the shvuah of Shimon or not? Did I get the case? David, did you get the case?
Yeah.
What?
The question is
the bottom line is, Reuven is the owner. Reuven very often trusts Shimon. Now Reuven gave it over to Levi as a Shomer Sachar. Shomer Sachar, the only way he can exempt himself is with a claim of onus. Now he doesn't know it was an onus. So he went ahead and gave it to Shimon. Shimon's a trustworthy guy. Shimon's claim, he doesn't have to say onus. Shimon just says, as long as I wasn't negligent on Potter, because Shimon's a free watchman, Shomer Chinam. So he makes, but Lemaisa, what happened was an onus. So he wants to make a shavua to the owner that an onus happened. Would you be chayav or Potter on that?
Because Levi wants Shimon to make that.
Levi wants Shimon to make the shua, and Levi wants that Reuven, the owner, should accept the shua from Shimon. And don't tell me you don't trust Shimon, because you do trust him as a Shomer Chinam. So why can't you trust the shua that it was an enas, that it was an onus?
Because the fact that he was paying Levi was like premiums on extra insurance. It's like an insurance policy.
Well, it was insurance, but what happened was he didn't cover onus, that insurance policy, and onus happened.
Shomer Sachar is only potter if onus happens to him. There's no onus that happened to him.
No, it is, because he now gave it to him, and we're proving that onus happened.
yeah, but maybe the actual Messina is
So very good. So the Rambam says that the Nesina, giving it over to someone with a lesser degree of shmir than you, is negligence itself.
Why is that negligence?
Because we learned because we learned last week that the difference between Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sachar is not just in how much responsibility you have, but it is in your level of shmira also, lechatchila. So you're giving it over to someone that has less of a level of shmira, even if he's trustworthy. What? So then you would say tchilasu. Very good. So I'm getting it. So you'd say it's tchilasu b'pshia v'sofa b'onus. You're right. It ended up being an onus, but it started off as a pshia.
It's not a pshia if I'm willing to pay for it if there's an error.
No, it is. It is, because that's always like that. There's a chiyuv to watch and not just let it get damaged and pay for it.
He's going to be shomer and better, and therefore what? There's not going to be an audience now?
He's going to do a better
So the
shmira.
problem is, if it's a tchilas of pshia of seven b'oines, is one halacha, it doesn't make sense. That's what you're asking. It's look at this. It says,
I don't think it was, but
page 40, what? V'hu,
I'll take it. It's being recorded.
yeah, it keeps you quiet for a few minutes. V'hu shelo yamait shmirasai. Aval emiyat shmirasa, but if you went down a level, kigon sharishon hu shomer sacha v'asheni shomer chinam, or the rishon is a shoyel v'asheni shomer sacha. Look at that, if you see it on page 40, in the last line in the Shulchan Aruch. If you go down a level, the last line, it says, Poisheya hu harishon. It's considered negligence from the first guy, because he went down a level. So he was being negligent. Umeshalim, and he has to pay. Okay, avopik, etc., etc. Now, if you look at page 42, the first line gets very sticky. It says, "V'im yesh edim sheshamar hasheni karoi." But if there's edim that it was an ones, then niftar shomer harishon. Then the rishon is potter. If there's edim that it was an ones, we don't need any shvuas here. It's an edim. If there's edim that it was an ones, then the shomer rishon is potter now. So the question is, if it's tchilas of pshia v'sofa ba'ones, the reason you're chayiv is because you were negligent, and therefore you're chayiv for whatever happens, then why, even if there's witnesses, you should be chayiv. And if you're going to say it's not tchilas of pshia v'sofa ba'ones, so then why can't you take the guy's shvua to say that it was an oines? What's the difference that if you prove through witnesses that there's an oines, you're potter, but if you prove it through the shvua of the first guy, you're still chayiv.
Maybe the witnesses were able to prove that it would have happened to the first guy too, and the situation that happened.
Okay, well that's a different question. The question is that you normally, if an animal just dies, we don't assume it's because of the pshia. We always assume animals die wherever they would have been, it would have died. It doesn't make a difference what happened. So that's another question. Okay, it's a possibility, but this Achronim all ask this question. That if you're going to tell me that it's a pshia, then what's pshat? So there's a genius chap over here from Reb Chaim Soloveitchik in the Sefer on the Rambam. He says a great pshat over here. And to sum it up, basically, not doing it justice, but to sum it up. Basically what he says is that we introduced the sugya today by saying that in order to appoint someone to be a shomer, part of the insurance policy is that he has to be able to make a shvuah to you. He has to be able to make a shvuah to you. So the shvuah of the shomer chinam is only about that he watched it properly. The shvuah of the shomer sachar is more that nothing happened to it except for an oinus. So when you go down a level, what the Rambam is saying that you were negligent, it doesn't mean tchilas b'shia v'sof b'oinus. It means that you were negligent to the point that you didn't provide for me somebody that can make the same shvuah you can make, because he's only a shomer chinam. So the negligence is not in the level of shmira, but the negligence is because this guy can't provide for me a shvuah, and therefore, here's the main point, therefore, since you went down a level and he cannot provide the shvuah for me, therefore, you have no right to put him in your place. You cannot put someone in your place that cannot respond with the same level of shvuah that you have. And therefore, that's the point. The point is that you put someone in place, it's not really a shomer. But if we have Edom on the Oines, so fine, we have Edom. But we have no Edom on it, so then he's not a shomer. So he can't make a shvuah. It doesn't help the shvuah. He's not really the shomer anymore. So basically the point is that there's a big difference between a shomer chinam, a shomer sachar. Giving it over to a shomer chinam means that lemaisa the shomer chinam does not take the place of the shomer sachar. That's the bottom line. And therefore, even though the whole lumdus of the sugya is that when you give it over to someone who's trustworthy, now you could deal with him. But when the other person is a lower level, you cannot put him in your place, and therefore you still maintain responsibility.
Why don't we go a little, just say that a shomer chinam doesn't do as much services as a shomer sachar, just by mitzias. So if I'm a shomer sachar and I am hiring a shomer chinam in my place, he's going to do a less of a job. So therefore, it's a step down in the shmira. If we have Eidim, he did the better shmira, not like Yeshla Eidim, but Shomer Hasheni Kiroi, that he did the shmira that a shomer sachar should do. he did. It's not that he did. He did whatever shmira I was responsible to do. That's what mechaber means.
I think the point is, either way, is that the Rambam is saying the word that you're negligent by giving it over to someone who's less than you, doesn't mean that it's a pshia, like you did something wrong. It's a pshia in the sense that that person can't take over. That's the idea. The idea is that the whole concept of Shomer Shemas or the Shomer is that you could put someone else to watch for you. You can have someone else watch on your behalf. You can't do that when the person is a lesser of a Shomer than you are. That's really the bottom line.
So why does it say, okay, if the Rambam, if mechaber means like you, why didn't it say, Im yesh edim shenensu? Why does it say, Im yesh, because...
No, because once it's an Edom Anensa, then the whole claim of the owner is out, because there's Edom on it. So we know what happened.
You know what happened. Still doesn't... You're saying that for sure, Pasha?
It's not Tchilas B'Shiv Sof B'Oinus. It's that we know what happened. And the other case is that since you gave it over to someone that can't make a shvuah, so therefore he can't really take over for you. Okay? So these are the basic svaras in the sugya. There's so much here. There's a lot of different cases, a lot of different things, but this is the basic structure of the sugya so far. I think in the next week maybe we'll go into some more details. And then there's one more ikar sugya in Shomerim, which is shlichus yad, which is if you use the item you're not supposed to use, what happens? That's a very interesting halacha. But in the meantime, we'll probably get a little further into this next week. Okay, shkoyach. Okay. Well, excellent.
Moshe, I forgot to ask you, you said you had a suggestion.